Hey everybody, welcome to Fantasy R&R. This is your host Ryan.
And I'm Rob.
And this is our Week 11 preview.
This is Fantasy with Rob and Ryan, Fantasy R&R.
Let's get started, as usual, with the Thursday night matchup.
Patriots at Falcons.
I'm going to go with Kendrick Bourne on this one. Actually picked him up in my ESPN league. I think he's been really undervalued, but the guy is efficient even if he's not getting a really impressive target volume. He's getting about an average of 4 targets a game. Mack Jones is looking much better, and the Falcons' D is still bad against the pass. I think he's the number one target right now, and N'Keal Harry still struggling and playing around third string.
Yeah, and I'm staying on the same side of the ball. Mack Jones looks like he is really starting to settle in at quarterback for the Patriots. Looked so efficient last week. Very, very good. Unfortunately, I sat him and played Matt Ryan. Fuck you, Matt Ryan. But Mack Jones looks like he is a man possessed, and I'm very interested to see how he tears up this very terrible Falcons defense.
Matt Ryan, bum.
Colts at Bills.
With this game, I'm going Jonathan Taylor. I think he's going to hit a wall, though. The reason I'm talking about him is just to temper your expectations a bit. I still think he'll have a big game, but he's not going to have one of those massive 30-point games. Don't sit him, but what I'm trying to say is temper your expectations here. The Bills' defense has been absolutely incredible this season, and Carson Wentz did not necessarily struggle in that Jaguars game. We've seen the Jaguars' defense get better, but he just didn't really have to play much. I think once he goes to the Bills, he's probably going to have a much harder time getting things done in the air when he's trying to on purpose. Jonathan Taylor is going to be who they lean on, and I think that the Bills are expecting it. So once again, Jonathan Taylor, you do not sit him, but temper your expectations for this game.
Yeah, I'm going both defenses here. I think Indy's defense and Buffalo's defense has been lights out, especially towards the run. So I definitely see what you're saying there with Jonathan Taylor. I'm going either one of these defense are going to be the highest scoring position, if you will, player that is going to score the most points on either one of these teams. Carson Wentz, I don't know. Josh Allen has, again, we saw it against Jacksonville. You rush them and they stop him, and I think the Colts can do the exact same thing to the Bills. So I'm going both D's, LOL.
Rob, we know how much you like 2 Ds at the same time.
Washington football team at Panthers.
For this game, I'm actually going to say Cam Newton. I've always kind of been a big Cam Newton fan. Last year, I thought that he was going to last just a little bit longer, but I did think that he was going to stay on the Patriots. So that prediction wound up pretty good for a short while until they decided to release him. But he is once again back in the NFL. The guy who dresses like Willy Wonka is ready to let loose. Cam Newton actually burst back onto the scene with a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown in the short amount of time he played against Arizona. So he had 2 TDs in one game, and he's actually going to get the start against the Washington football team. Washington football team has been incredibly terrible against the pass, surprisingly, and Cam Newton is going to look to use both his arm and his feet to his advantage. Watch out. I think it's time for those Panthers wide receivers to get fed the ball a little more with Cam Newton at the helm.
Yeah, and to piggyback off what you're saying here, Ryan, DJ Moore will bounce back this week. His last few weeks he's been subpar, but not because of him, because of the fact that the Carolina is having such a hard time with quarterback this year. Cam Newton did look pretty good last week. I'm very interested to see how that does pan out, but without saying Christian McCaffrey, as long as he stays healthy, go surprise, he's got some sort of tweaked hamstring right now, so they don't know what's going on with him. I'm thinking DJ Moore is going through the air. Is going to have a very big game against a very porous Washington defense.
Ravens at Bears.
That's what I think about this fucking backfield for Baltimore. But I am going to say Devontae Freeman is the guy I'm going with. A lot of people have said you might want to, sit him and think twice about starting with Latavius Murray coming back. I actually think it's the opposite. We've seen this time and time again. Once somebody comes in after someone else gets injured, it's like the coach doesn't care about the first guy anymore. He's got a new toy to play with. He's got a new girlfriend. He's not thinking about the ex. Devontae Freeman might be like that, where he has showed up 3 weeks in a row for the Chargers, the Bengals, and the Vikings. Didn't have the greatest game against the Dolphins, but he still led the backfield there. Latavius Murray, I don't know how much of a contribution he's actually going to make. Devontae Freeman should have a pretty good game, all things considered, because Le'Veon Bell has been cut. You remember that guy? Yeah, what a fucking joke that's become. Le'Veon Bell is gone. Bears D is bad against the rush. Murray is coming off an injury. Devontae Freeman's going to be your guy.
Yeah, let me take a second to piggyback again off the Le'Veon Bell thing. What a douche. You know who's not a douche though? Rashad Bateman. Me and Ryan keep talking about him. I believe this has to be the week this guy not only scores a touchdown, but will be considered must-owned after this game. Again, Bears defense has been bad. They have to throw to somebody. Sammy Watkins isn't cutting it. Please, God, give another wide receiver a chance, and it should be Rashad Bateman. And again, I do believe this will be the game he will be must-owned after he tears up the Bears defense.
Totally agree. I bait to Bateman every single day. Love having him on my teams.
Lions at Browns.
For this game, Dearness rides again. If it was December, I'd say Dearness saves Christmas. With Kareem Hunt still out, Nick Chubb not cleared from the COVID protocol to play yet, and Baker Mayfield admitting in an interview that he's slightly injured, I think that they're going to rely heavily on Dearness Johnson, knowing they're going up against a terrible Lions offense and a terrible Lions defense. This is one of those games that the Browns can just kind of ride out real slowly, and Dearness Johnson's looked absolutely incredible with all the touches he's gotten. He kind of came out of nowhere. He's a real hot waiver pickup, one of those guys that you kind of like just go after because you know he's just going to be the workhorse for that one game. Well, I think he's earned it. Dearness rides again here against the Lions.
With that news coming out about Baker Mayfield, I do believe that it's going to be a dink and doink game. And again, we're talking about another defense that's just really, really bad, and Detroit is really, really bad. And I think that Austin Hooper, who scored a touchdown last week, might be a very viable target to Baker Mayfield up and down the field all game long, just due to the fact if he is really injured, he's just going to be looking for short passes, and Austin Hooper could have one of those surprising Austin Hooper weeks that makes him a must-add after this one against a very, once again, terrible defense in Detroit. Austin Hooper, I'm going 100 yards and a touchdown.
49ers at Jaguars.
George Kittle is back, guys. This isn't so much a call as just kind of the alarm bell right now. George Kittle had an underwhelming start to the season. In 4 games, he had less than 100 yards in each game, 0 touchdowns, and then he gets hurt, and we haven't seen him for about 4 weeks now. Coming back against Arizona in Week 9, he posted 6 receptions, 101 yards, and a TD. And this last game against the Rams, 5 receptions, 50 yards, and a TD. George Kittle is back, and I think he's going to tear apart the Jacks defense that was looking better, but they're not going to have an answer for a tight end like him. They're going to be worried about Aiyuk. They're going to be worried about Deebo Samuel, and they've got really nobody in the free safety area to really worry about who's going to be cutting down the field. And that's George Kittle, who can really extend the vertical routes, and he's a big, powerful guy. I think Kittle's going to have a massive game against the Jaguars.
Let's go Brandon Aiyuk. Made me look like a fool last week, but I think this is going to be the week. Again, Jacksonville's defense has looked better, but they are going to be putting, I believe, Shaquille Griffin on Deebo Samuel, more than likely freeing up Brandon Aiyuk. I believe this is the week that I predicted last week for Brandon Aiyuk. I'm still not giving up on this guy, plus his name is amazing.
Packers at Vikings.
You guys remember what I said about Aaron Jones at the beginning of the season? It happened. I did not expect an injury. I don't wish injuries on players, but Aaron Jones officially has had one of the most underwhelming and disappointing fantasy seasons of any player that is usually your workhorse during your season. With that being said, there's a guy in the backfield named AJ Dillon, who a lot of people have owned for a while and started to get real depressed about. They thought Aaron Jones was going to leave the Packers in the offseason. It didn't happen. They're like, oh, it was this close. Well, now your time is here. AJ Dillon is going to be eating. This guy needs to be owned in all leagues at this point. I think he's 88% rostered in ESPN. I love this kid. My dad's got him on his team. We got an autograph rookie card of the guy. This last game where Aaron Jones goes out, didn't have a totally efficient YPC, but he gets 2 touchdowns on the ground. And believe it or not, he even did a little bit of receiving work, getting 2 receptions for 62 yards, ripping off a big one during one of those passes. So AJ Dillon is looking like that dual threat running back that needs to be your RB1 in every league.
Yeah, I'm going Packers defense in this game. They have been very surprising up to this point this year, and I believe the Vikings offense is just way too hit or miss. It's being reported that Aaron Rodgers is having some sort of toe injury, so I do agree with you, Ryan. I believe it's going to be very heavy on the ground. Smash mouth football. AJ Dillon is going to have a good game, but I believe the Packers defense is going to come out on top on this one as well against a very piss poor, if you will, Vikings offense. I hate you, Kirk Cousins. You're annoying.
Dolphins at Jets.
One guy who I'm not going to say if he dies, is Tua Tagovailoa. That's right, Tua is actually going to make his start again against the New York Jets in New York. Well, New Jersey, basically. But he was a full participant in Thursday's walkthrough today. So barring any setbacks, Tagovailoa is going to be starting. And let's not forget, after Brissett really struggled in that ugly, disgusting Thursday night game with Baltimore, he comes in and he gets the rushing TD and 158 yards passing in very little time. So Tua is probably going to have a big bounce-back game against the New York Jets. I'm taking him in as a QB, let's say QB 8 this week.
I'm lighting the candles and I'm getting the bed sheets ready because I'm about to have another one-night stand with Myles Gaskin. That's right, deploy Mr. Gaskin, Mr. Up and Down all season long. You never know when this guy's going to score a touchdown. Had a touchdown reversed last week, so technically had one, but thank you, false starts. Myles Gaskin is going to have a great game against a really bad Jets defense, and if I'm rush defense, excuse me. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe they have given up the most rushing touchdowns against anybody in the NFL this year. Plus, Mr. Joe Flacid himself is going to be starting for the Jets, so I believe Miami's defense is going to get that offense off the field early. Very late running game for the Dolphins. They win big against the Jets on Sunday.
Saints at Eagles.
Speaking of Flacid, the Saints wide receivers have been absolutely terrible this year, but Deontay Harris will probably have a decent game. This guy is the 47th ranked wide receiver and only 4% rostered, which is actually kind of shocking when you compare those two numbers together. This last week at Tennessee, 4 targets, 3 receptions, 84 yards, no TD. Week before that, pretty much the same. So he's actually been kind of a consistent option here. He's got a couple of touchdowns on the season, and I think he's pretty much the main target. Obviously, with Trevor Siemian and Taysom Hill taking over, with Jameis Winston out with that ACL, it's going to be kind of rough on the Saints' offensive side of the ball. But Deontay Harris should have a decent game against a Philadelphia Eagles defense that gives up a lot of fantasy points to wide receivers.
If you're like me and you own Miles Sanders on a team, you have been wondering all year, where have you been? Well, he's been injured the last few weeks. He's supposed to be coming back, and I am not starting this man no matter what. There's zero confidence with Miles Sanders. Until we see what he does week 11, I say leave him on your bench. I'm going to reverse. I'm going to not to play, but to not play. Miles Sanders, bench that man.
Texans at Titans.
I just want to say, go take a look through our old catalog of Fantasy R&R episodes. Look for the one about Deontay Foreman. This guy was just kind of like in and out of the league. He had problems with practice squads. He couldn't make full rosters, problems with the playbook. But he had always been a really talented running back coming out of the 2017 draft. I am kind of surprised, but he's kind of, getting his name back into the fold here. I'm just going to say look out for him right now as he seems to be overshadowing Jeremy McNichols.
Yeah, this is, again, another really bad defense. The Texans' D is terrible. AJ Brown had a really horrible game last week, and I think he bounces back in a very huge way this week. I'm not going to be surprised. There's multiple touchdowns, well over 100 yards receiving. Texans are really bad, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Bengals at Raiders.
I'm going to say T. Higgins on this one. Just to put things in perspective, T. Higgins, although he's had a couple of games missed due to injury, is position rank 45 on the season. So comparing that to Deontay Harris, who's 47, Deontay Harris being owned 4% in leagues, T. Higgins is owned 91%, but he should be. T. Higgins is probably going to have a pretty big game after this bye week rest. Now he's going to be totally fully healed from that injury earlier in the season. He's had a couple of touchdowns on the season. No crazy games because of the success of Jamar Chase, but going up against the Raiders, I think they're going to be heavily involved in covering Jamar Chase, and you're going to see a big game from T. Higgins here. Put him in your slots as your wide receiver 2 or flex 2.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Bryan Edwards for the Raiders this week. He has been doing pretty good all season long. I don't think he's really done anything special, but this could definitely be the week. As it seems, the Raiders are trying to find their offensive identity here. We know Darren Waller, the baller, is going to go off. And you got Ruggs. Oh, wait, you don't. So why not it be Bryan Edwards?
Cowboys at Chiefs.
So this isn't so much of a fantasy call or a fantasy suggestion, just as like, I just want to make a prediction here as if I was betting in Vegas right now. Tyree Kill is the number 2 ranked wide receiver on the season, so if you drafted him in the first 10 picks of the first round, congratulations, you got your value back. The big explosions for him were week 1 and week 4, where he posted 33 points and 44 points respectively. Since then, he's kind of waffled back and forth. 18 points week 6, then 9. 21 points week 8, then 5. 24 points against the Raiders this last week, and now he's going up against Dallas, where there's going to be an absolute shootout between Mahomes and Prescott. I am just going to say that I think Tyree Kill gets 30 fantasy points in this game. Calling it now.
I like it, and I really don't have a prediction for this game other than the fact that the Chiefs are officially back and seems that they are back on their winning ways. So let's stop talking about, are the Chiefs not going to make it to the playoffs, blah, 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 blah. They're good. They're really good. But, hey, I wouldn't mind seeing a couple extra touchdowns from Travis Kelce, so that would be very helpful. So let's go Chiefs.
Cardinals at Seahawks.
We talked about James Conner on our running back discussion episode a few weeks back. We didn't know what to make of him. Guess what? James Conner is now the 9th ranked running back in fantasy right now due to all the crazy injuries that we're seeing with your main first rounders. James Conner has given incredible value to the people who drafted him late, and right now averaging about 14 points per fantasy appearance. Obviously, he can't keep up with those kind of extreme performances like San Francisco with 2 touchdowns and 38 points and then getting a touchdown in the air. But against Seattle, who's giving up 125 rushing yards per game, James Conner is going to be a solid RB1 again. Just keep him in your lineups from here on out.
And reversing what you just said, people have to start wondering whether or not DeAndre Hopkins has been a bust this season. It sure seems that he has, in my eyes. And if he sits again, and let's say Kyler does play, which I believe he practiced yesterday, look for Rondale Moore to start getting a little more targets. He showed very early in the season. We saw flashes of him. Guy seems extremely dynamic and very similar to Rashad Bateman. I believe both those wide receivers here in the next 5 years we're going to be drafting unanimously in early rounds of draft picks everywhere.
Steelers at Chargers.
All I have to say for this one is Pittsburgh is 9th against the pass this year, so expect another dud from the little bitch Mike Williams.
If Big Ben starts, it's time to hop back on the Muth train. Freiermuth must be owned. Keep playing this guy. Last week was not his fault. Let's just all agree that Mason Rudolph is a really, really bad quarterback.
I don't know. I saw him throw that helmet against Myles Garrett, and he looks like he's got a pretty good arm. Oh wait, that was Myles Garrett.
Giants at Buccaneers.
For this game, I'm going to say that Saquon Barkley, while he is returning, is going to struggle. They're going up the Tampa Bay Bucks, who are giving up 79 rushing yards per game. That's 2nd in the league. Saquon has been a victim of terrible play calls where they run him right up the middle, even though we know that Saquon is a physical lateral running back who can move side to side like nobody else in the league. But this is the way they've been using him, and I think they're just going to give him a couple of handoffs. He's going to get nowhere, and they're going to kind of back off to make sure they nurse that injury fully back to health. But I do expect Saquon to return and have a difficult game.
I propose a question for you. What happens when Tom Brady loses a game and looks very mad at the end of a game? He tends to come back the next game and have a huge one. I'm thinking Tom Brady is going to sling the ball for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns on what will more than likely be one of the worst Monday Night Football games of all time. I think the Bucs are winning this one big, and it's all going to be because of Tom Brady's arm.
You heard it here first, folks. If you take any of our advice, God fucking help you. Once again, this is Fantasy R&R with Rob and Ryan. We will see you next time.